So if you're trying to go for the World War I aesthetic, it's probably best to do it right. And if you're going to do it right, you're probably going to end up with something like this.
One day he got a letter from his wife. She asked Johnny how he liked the life.
Now the World War I uniform went through many iterations, and you'll probably see a lot of different versions of it. So there are ones that look like this. Now this is actually the super old uniform that they wore before the war started. And as you can see, it's kind of an almost white khaki color, which would obviously stand out on a World War I battlefield. And it probably wouldn't have been good for the soldiers wearing that uniform. However, I think some of the Marines actually got this uniform in combat since they didn't have enough of the olive drab uniforms to go around. And then you'll probably see this uniform. Now, this one is actually going to be the marching uniform that they wore before they went onto the ships to France. This uniform is not what they wore into combat, though. This is just the kind of parade uniform with the cowboy hats and lack of any useful gear like gas masks. And then, of course, you'll see soldiers like this, and this is what I was trying to go for. This is the accurate soldier's uniform in combat.
The German run very fast, but he couldn't last. Johnny ran right past. Johnny's captain said, "Why don't you shoot?" Johnny said, "I won't kill this galoot. I have just killed 5. I'll bring
this
one in alive."
gas mask bag is one of the most important items that you can get for a World War I kit. This is a very distinctive look that it gives you, and all of the soldiers in World War I that were going over the top definitely had one of these somewhere on their gear. This they usually wore on their chest up high so that they could quickly access it in case of a gas attack. So this gas mask bag is not real, it is definitely fake. This is a recreation of a World War II British gas mask bag. Thankfully, the British used the same gas mask bag in World War I and World War II, so this is basically going to look just like the real thing. If not, then it's going to look similar enough. Unfortunately, it didn't come with a strap, so I had to get my own. I really just used this shitty little belt thing, and I just wrapped it around the inside, so it works well enough. You know, it's cheap, and it looks correct, and that's all that matters. This is a real steel helmet. It is not a real World War I helmet. I would never recommend getting a real World War I steel helmet because they're expensive as fuck, and also they are going to probably be really rusty and nasty and gross. So if you are going to get one, they make this recreation that you can get on Amazon. I think they're about $70, $80 USD. They are real steel, so they give you that genuine feeling of wearing a real steel helmet. I think it's thin sheet steel, and then it has some kind of weird, like green paint plaster thing coated all over it. Now the inside has a liner, and I modified it because my head is too big. You might notice that there is dirt on top of the helmet, and this is actually part of the aesthetic of World War I. Because of all of the artillery shells that were falling around the soldiers in the trenches, their helmets would always get covered in dirt. And so in a lot of the old movies and pictures, you'll often see the soldiers have dirt on their helmets. So if you're going to be going for the aesthetic, you might as well add the dirt just to have that finishing touch. Next up, we got this ammo bag. This is once again a fake ammo bag. It is a recreation of a M1918 BAR ammunition bag. It's for the magazines, so it has these nice big pouches. I, of course, do not have an Airsoft BAR, so I just use it for ammo, water, whatever else I need on the field. It also gives me more of that look with that extra gear on. Most soldiers in World War I weren't just wearing the standard gear, they were wearing other pouches and bags and other types of gear, so it looks pretty legit. The belt is actually real. This is a real belt, made in 1917 and all that. This is what they used to store their 1903 clips into. The pouches are really small, so honestly, I mean, this is Really only good for storing extra BBs, just a little handful of BBs inside one of these, and just able to quickly load your mags, whatever. That's really all it's good for. It can't really fit anything else, so mainly just for aesthetic and looking correct. I would say that these belts are actually very important. If you are going to be doing a US World War I loadout, you want to make sure you get these belts and not any other belts. They're pretty common, not very expensive, so you can also get the World War II belts. They look slightly different, but mainly they look pretty darn similar. And then we got the harness. Now the harness is definitely not real. The harness is a recreation of a World War II harness. It looks close enough to the World War I harness, so I said, screw it, I'm going to cheap out. Then I'll briefly talk about the shoes. So when it comes to the shoes, it really doesn't matter that much what you get. I just looked at a few different pictures of shoes from World War I, and I got something that looked relatively similar. So next is the uniform and the pants. Now these are actually both real. These were actually both made in 1917, and I'm very proud to have these two pieces of history. You might notice there is a slightly different shade between the pants and the uniform. This is because they were from two separate uniforms, but really a pretty small difference in the color. Also, the putties I have here are real. They actually were also made in 1917. They are in absolutely stellar condition. It's hard to find putties that are going to be in this good of condition. So I got really lucky. They're also pretty inexpensive on eBay, so you can find them. They're relatively common, and if you can't find real ones, I would not recommend going with the fake ones. The fake ones are not worth it at all. If you are going to be going for a standard issue bolt-action rifle, you really have two choices. For a United States Army soldier, you would be getting the 1903, and this is a 1903A4. And that's actually important because this is not the variant that they actually used in World War I. If you have an eye for these kind of things, you might notice that there is no indentation in the wood, and that kind of bothered me because that's a very standout part of the gun from the World War I era. But this is the World War II variant, and this is the only airsoft variant that's out there. Now there's two kinds. One is a gas weapon, and the other one is a spring one, and this is the spring one. This is the S&T 1903A4. So the nice thing about spring is that spring is very reliable. You don't have to worry about filling your gas or charging your batteries, and it's always ready to go. It is fun to rack the bolts. However, you will have to rack the bolt for every shot, so your rate of fire is not going to be very good. It's going to be very bad. You open up this little hatch on the bottom, just like that. Got this little button on the inside. Press it, mag comes out. Get your new mag. Make sure the BB is seated because it won't fire if the BB is not seated, which can be very annoying. Now, you're not trying to stab people in airsoft, so you got to get a rubber bayonet. And this is the M1905 bayonet, which was the standard bayonet for soldiers at the time, and of course, completely harmless. Now, it actually does mount on to the S&T 1903. It just barely fits, so you got to kind of just get it on by force. But it's a sturdy fit, you know, it's not going anywhere.
Let them know there's going to be a pinochle game. They come over the top with a skip and a hop. Then your work is done. When they first show their face, lump them with the name. That's the game called hunting.